All right, welcome to the Hill here on NewsNation. Trump visits the DOJ, what he's vowing tonight, plus the Putin phone call, and the rocket is ready to launch. So when will those stranded astronauts finally come home? That's Topping the Hill on NewsNation tonight.
Our predecessors turned this Department of Justice into the Department of Injustice. But I stand before you today to declare that those days are over and they are never going to come back.
Claims from the top law enforcement officer at the Department of Justice today. President Trump saying his mandate involves a far-reaching investigation into the justice system. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Blake Berman. I'm told Donald Trump talking right now. Let's listen live.
Walk us through the tariffs and why it will be financially beneficial for America. We know the Australians will not do reciprocal tariffs, but can you walk us through this whole process and how it will bring wealth back to the United States?
Well, it's going to bring tremendous wealth back. And it was tariffs used in reverse that really brought our country to a position that we don't ever want to be in again. And when somebody is treating us badly, we're going to put tariffs on. They're going to be very fair. They're going to be fair and reciprocal. And our country's going to come back very, very strong. I think our country's going to come roaring back. The tariffs are a big deal. And frankly, that's how China does it. And that's how a lot of other people do it. And we do it better than them. But we never had a president that knew how to do it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so President Trump there, Joint Base Andrews, just down the road here in Washington. The commander-in-chief headed to South Florida for the weekend after yet another busy day, busy week here in Washington. As you see him get up there, we keep our eyes on the president. He had, we're told, a little bit of an incident, actually, just moments ago, as there was a little bit of a trip on Marine One, I believe. We'll get that video when we have it. But we heard from President Trump there just a moment ago, talking tariffs, which was one of the big stories of this week and will continue to be one of the big stories going forward. It is a Friday night, don't you know, but there is tons of action in and around this town at this moment. Up on Capitol Hill, the former TV star turned Senate candidate, Dr. Oz, facing questions at his confirmation hearing to potentially run Medicare and Medicaid. And in the Senate as well, Democrats split today in voting for the Republican-backed bill to keep the government open. Chuck Schumer is now facing major heat from within his own party. Plus, how cool is this? A live look right now at what is expected to be a SpaceX launch to send astronauts to the International Space Station, and in the process there, bring 2 of the stranded astronauts back home to planet Earth. Also tonight, anger at town halls. We're talking with one Republican who's deciding not to do them, and questions about the future of Bibles in schools. The man who wants that to happen will join us here on the Hill as well. But first tonight from the Hill, the President and the Department of Justice. We begin tonight with our Kelly Meyer, who's live at the White House. Kelly?
Yeah, and President Donald Trump just departing here at the White House. He didn't take questions from us here at the White House, but as you saw, he did take some questions there at Joint Base Andrews. But he did speak earlier for over an hour inside the Department of Justice, a rare speech inside those walls. But it really felt more like a campaign rally speech, Blake, than an official one. And he covered everything from what he calls the weaponization of the Justice Department, firing back at his political foes, to trashing legacy media. And the main focus, at least from those props on stage and what Attorney General Pam Bondi laid out ahead of the president, was on illegal fentanyl making its way across the border and the administration's work to take drugs off the streets. Bondi saying the cartels better live in fear, she said. But Trump really focusing a lot in that speech on what he says occurred in the Justice Department over the course of the Biden administration.
Now, as the chief law enforcement officer in our country, I will insist upon and demand full and complete accountability for the wrongs and abuses that have occurred. The American people have given us a mandate like few people thought possible.
Now, outside the Justice Department, frequent Democratic critic of Trump, Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin, gave a rebuttal of Trump's long-winded speech, and he did it alongside former Justice Department workers either fired by Trump or chose to resign because of his administration. Take a listen.
Speak we just witnessed is a desecration of the essential values of the storied department in every way. It's an insult to the thousands of professional lawyers who go to work at the Department of Justice every day to enforce the rule of law.
And on another note, the president also took time in that speech to talk about the war between Russia and Ukraine, saying, quote, there is some pretty good news, but he didn't elaborate on that, Blake.
Our Kelly Meyer live at the White House tonight. Kelly, thank you. Well, there is a divide within the Democratic Party tonight, and the fury is directed at the longtime leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer. Lawmakers are now on the path to averting a government shutdown. 10 Democratic senators crossing the aisle on a key procedural vote that clears the way to advance a measure that keeps the government funded. The Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, is voting for the bill to avert a shutdown, but many within the party feel that he is folding and clearing the decks for the Trump agenda. More than 60 members, Democrats in the House, signed a letter today expressing their opposition. And here's what the House Minority Leader, this is remarkable. Here's what Hakeem Jeffries said when he was asked about Schumer earlier today. Watch.
Is it time for new leadership in the Senate?
Next question.
Is it time for new leadership in the Senate? Next question. Our Joe Khalil joins me now with how this is playing out. Those are the top two Democrats, and Jeffries wanted none of it today when talking about Schumer.
I'm glad you started with that because it's hard to explain to those outside of this how remarkable a soundbite like that actually is.
That's why we played it.
Hakeem Jeffries, Speaker Pelosi before him, Chuck Schumer, they have been lockstep, Blake, on virtually every major policy decision, on every major vote until today, and it was in dramatic fashion. Chuck Schumer yesterday says, I'm voting for the bill because I want to avoid a shutdown. For Hakeem Jeffries to, when they're not even in today, show up at the Capitol impromptu and say in front of cameras, don't vote that way. Vote against what Chuck Schumer is telling you to do. Senators, listen to us, not to him. That is extraordinary. Big picture, we're going to very likely avoid a shutdown at this point.
By the way, let me stop you here because this is a live look on the Senate floor, I am told, and that official vote is starting momentarily.
Okay, yeah, and so glide path now, it should be an easy pass. I think when you take Schumer's side of this, there really wasn't any other way for this to go down. We talked to Senator John Fetterman today, and he said basically, what is Democrats' strategy to get out of a shutdown when there is one?
Right.
He says, I understand the instinct to fight, but you can't fight your way into something and then have furloughed workers and not have any pathway out. Schumer basically saying, I'll take the heat for this. It's the right thing to do. But right now you got a real riff in the party where you got voters saying, fight for us, which is the Jeffries path. And Schumer says, I'm taking the high road here.
All right. Our Joe Khalil live for us tonight. We'll keep our eyes, by the way, on that Senate vote, but it's pretty much a formality at this point. All right. So as the Democratic split goes public, key Democrats were back at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, meeting with President Trump. The Democratic governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, discussing several topics, including a New York gas pipeline project and congestion pricing. A few weeks back, Hochul slammed the administration for blocking congestion pricing in the Big Apple. And just yesterday, the Michigan governor, Gretchen Whitmer, said she had a, quote, productive meeting with the president about jobs in her state, tariffs, and defense investments. Also on the Hill today, a familiar face in front of TV cameras, Dr. Mehmet Oz, had his turn in the congressional spotlight. At his Senate confirmation hearing, the former Pennsylvania Senate candidate and TV doctor making his case for why he should be the next head of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. He shared what he called some of the painful truths about health care in this country.
A healthcare cost per person in this country is twice that of other developed nations. The most expensive care we give is bad care. You pay to do the wrong thing, you pay to fix what was done wrong, then you pay to deal with all the complications.
On the other side, Democratic senators accused Oz of underpaying Medicare and Social Security taxes, and they also appeared frustrated by him refusing to promise to oppose Medicaid cuts. Next stop, the Finance Committee will vote on his nomination. If it passes, it will then go on to the full Senate.
Do you support Trump on annexing Canada or Greenland?
Do I support annexing Greenland and Canada? The short answer to that is no.
North Carolina Congressman Chuck Edwards, the latest to face heated constituents about the Trump administration at a town hall in Asheville last night. We're seeing these start to pop up all over the country. Now, following the event, the congressman posted saying, in part, quote, "Had a lively town hall with my constituents in Asheville. We may not agree on every issue, but hearing the concerns of Western North Carolinians and answering your questions will continue to be a priority of mine." Congressman Edwards joined me here on the Hill last week. I asked him why he was holding an in-person event given such anger that we have seen at other town halls.
My constituents have asked for it. I trust my constituents, even those that I might not agree with. But more than that, I'm proud of what Republicans are accomplishing right now, and I want the opportunity to talk about that. President Trump is keeping his promises.
Joining me now is Congressman Don Bacon from Omaha, Nebraska. The congressman will be holding tele-town halls, and tomorrow the Minnesota governor and former VP candidate Tim Walz will visit his district to potentially call him out on that. Congressman Bacon, thanks for being back with us here on the Hill. Appreciate it.
By the way, Congressman Edwards is a great guy. He's a great friend of mine.
He's on this show a lot, as are you, Congressman, and that's where I want to start, because you're not shy, right? You're on television all the time. You're taking the questions. You're answering the hard questions. You're in a purple district, really a blue district. Kamala Harris won your district. But you're not doing these town halls, and you just spoke about Congressman Edwards, who is. Why are you making the decision not to have these in person? It feels like it goes against the congressman who I know who's not afraid to take these questions.
Well, I've always done one town hall a quarter. That's always been my rule of thumb. And I've done a mix of teletown halls and in-person town halls. And I never said I would never do an in-person town hall. So someone else told you that. It's not me. But I am doing a telephone town hall a week and a half from now. And we average 6,000 people on our telephone town halls. Normally you get like 300 people in an in-person town hall if it's big. A lot of times it's 200 or less. So I'll just tell you, it's more efficient to do a telephone town hall because you get over 10 times the number of people.
Republicans have been advised not to do these. And Chuck Edwards clearly did it. Will you do these in person?
Well, the first one I'm going to do is telephone town hall, and then I'll do one the next quarter. I may do an in-person town hall. I haven't decided one way or the other way. Okay. But I always do one a quarter. And a telephone town hall, just to be candid with you, it's better. You get 10 times the number of people on there. You run through, you get double the number of questions asked. And I like all the hard questions on there. I'm going to make sure we put on people that don't like DOJ. They don't like, the Ukraine stuff going on. Neither do I, by the way. So I don't mind having all that on there. But frankly, some of these town halls get so bad that you can't even bring children to them. There's something wrong with that. And I have people that forward me the MoveOn.org and the Indivisible emails that they get. And they're very choreographed. And they're meant to make the members of Congress fail. So, for example, they'll say, Harry, you asked this question. Pete, you asked this question. Joe, you scream and yell, we're not going to give you a question. It's all staged by left-wing radicals.
So let me ask you, because you just talked about Elon Musk. You just talked about Ukraine. Musk recently called a Democratic senator a traitor for visiting Ukraine. You said, quote, "It's not decent. It's not right." You've been against some of the tariffs, specifically Canadian tariffs. I don't agree with the tariffs in Canada, you've said. So if you are at these town halls, virtual or telephone or in person, and you get asked, Congressman, what about Musk? What about the tariffs? What would you say?
I would say what I've already said publicly. I'm an open book. I say, I'm on here, I say what I think. I try to be tactful, I try to be polite, but I'm always candid. And when it comes to Musk, I thought it was wrong to call any senator a traitor for one, but this particular senator, he's a combat veteran, an astronaut, and it's all right to disagree with someone, but to call a traitor I thought was wrong, and I said it publicly. I would say that at the town hall. I'll be able to say that at this telephone town hall. And my point is, it's better. You get more stuff done in a telephone town hall. So I'm not going to retreat and saying like I'm retreating from this. You get more done in a telephone town hall, and you reach 10 times more people. When it comes to DOJ, I'll say I like the auditing. I don't like the rash cuts on people. Then you got to retract them when you realize you cut somebody important. So I'm very honest. I'm an open book, whether with the media or our constituents.
Got it. We got to leave it there. As I mentioned, you do take the questions. You're here often. We appreciate your time as always, sir. Congressman Don Bacon there in Omaha, Nebraska for us tonight. Talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
All right, still to come here on the Hill. What we are learning tonight after that scare on the ground in Denver. sending an American Airlines plane up in flames. Plus, pencils, paper, and prayer. One state Supreme Court now pushing back against Bibles in the classroom. Could this be headed to the Supreme Court next? And less than an hour until launch, SpaceX tries once again to bring those stranded astronauts home who have been stuck in orbit for more than 9 months. All systems are a go at this moment as the countdown continues. Welcome to Washington on this Friday night. Hope you're having a good one. This is the center of politics. A lot of action. We're back in a few. I'm Blake Berman, CN4.
Get help right away for face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, wheezing, or trouble breathing. Tell your doctor of new or worsening eye problems like eye pain, vision changes, or blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma or other medicines without talking to your doctor. Dupixent, the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists and allergists. Help your child feel the heal and see the difference. Reach out to your child's eczema specialist today.
I love NewsNation, so thank you for the work you guys are doing.
Thank you to NewsNation for not leaving us here.
And thank y'all for busting this thing wide open.
Thank you to all of NewsNation.
You brought me back to watching cable news again.
NewsNation, news for all Americans.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. The big event for President Trump this afternoon at the Department of Justice. Gave a speech that lasted more than an hour or so. On this Friday, I wanted to sort of point out two different things I noticed today when it comes to either the president or really things that the White House is going to be keeping their eye on. First off, the president talking about the prices of sort of different items going down. Watch.
Inflation's down, interest rates down, gasoline has come down to a level that we haven't seen in a long time. All things that we wanted to do, because then everything else is going to be coming down.
All right, so prices coming down, the president says. Hello, Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff. How's it going, sir? Happy Friday.
It's great. You always catch me trying to read. The screen is so far away, I have to read out of this part of my glasses. That's why I do that when you guys are showing the graphics. So,
oh, good. All right, yeah, so let me go. Hold on, Mick. So hang with me here. Let me walk through these with you. So 3 different graphics I want to show you. And Mick knows the numbers better than I do. So hang with me here, Mick. This is long-term inflation. This was a key survey that came out today. This was before the election. This is where it is now, headed up. People think that inflation is going higher, all right? So that's one. Let's roll over to the next one, which is the stock market compared to President Trump's approval rating. So this is the approval rating, these bars. You can see it's ticking down. And this is the S&P 500. It kind of tracks along with it, right? It's not perfect or symmetrical, but you can see where it goes there. That's the second one, Mick. And then the third one's easy for anyone to read. It's new Quinnipiac University poll is handling of the economy. 41% approve, 54% disapprove. And Mick, this I think comes down to tariffs, right? People are seeing the tariffs. They're seeing the headlines. They're worried that prices are potentially going to go up. You've been saying you think the leeway is basically until about the summer, maybe until August. Are you still there for the president that he has that much time, given the numbers that we've seen?
Well, we're almost to summer anyway. I mean, we're coming into springtime, so we're getting close. But look, what we've talked about before is that administrations can blame previous administrations for some period of time. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 3, maybe it's a year. A lot of that variability depends on how much the incoming administration does. If they don't do much on the economy and you go into a recession in June, they could look back and say, oh, it was the other folks' fault.
Right.
But if you completely rework the economy, it's really hard to run away from it. And that's what Trump is doing. He's focusing on these tariffs. They're having a dramatic impact on prices. By the way, that first graphic that you show, there you go again. Yeah. That's inflation expectations. That's not inflation. There's a difference between those two things. But that's just as important.
Right.
That's exactly right. That people are worried that prices are going up and that they're going to be more expensive next week than they are this week. My wife and I went out to buy a bunch of wine today in fear of the European tariffs. That's happening all over the place.
Soundbite real quick, Mick. We only got about a minute left. The president was speaking, so we're crunched on time. President today on Russia after the Vladimir Putin phone call yesterday.
I think we've had some very good results. So, I haven't been able to say that to anybody else. I haven't wanted to say it until just before I came here. I got some pretty good news. So, but we have to see what happens. It's still a long way to go. The fighting is unbelievable.
Decode that for me. As the former chief of staff, it sounded like the president felt fairly good about how the phone call went with Putin and other news that might have happened today.
Yeah, no, I see it a different way. By the way, not the first time I've lost time on television out to Donald Trump, not the last either. But anyway, no, I picked up on the got a long way to go part. That the tenor was softer, that the energy was a little bit lower. I think he realizes that this is not going to be as easy as he thought that it was going to be. Wow. Okay. All right. Mick Mulvaney, with that read of it. Interesting. Mick, thank you, sir. Enjoy the wine. Appreciate it. Happy Friday. Thanks, Blank. We'll see you. All right, you got it. So much more ahead here on The Hill. Reading, writing, and a whole lot of more than arithmetic. The spirited debate over Bibles in schools. One education leader who's pushing for the idea joins me on the other side of the break. Why the courts are now fighting back. Plus, he's an astronaut turned senator, what Mark Kelly is doing because of Elon Musk. And he caught the winning pitch in last year's World Series. So why is Will Smith from the Dodgers giving away that ball? I'll explain. Welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. The Postal Service stamps a deal with DOJ. An American Airlines plane catches fire, and a senator unplugs his Tesla. Our Libby Dean with what's happening here on The Hill and more. Hello, Libby.
Hi, Blake. Happy Friday. We've got a new deal for the United States Postal Service. In a letter to Congress, the Postmaster General announcing he'll work with Elon Musk's DOJ to cut 10,000 jobs and billions from the agency's budget. Currently, the Postal Service is hemorrhaging money, finishing almost $10 billion in the red last year. Now, a plane carrying 172 passengers en route to Dallas was forced to land in Denver after the crew reported engine vibrations. After landing, the plane's engine caught fire. Everyone was evacuated and 12 people were taken to the hospital for minor injuries. Plus, more Democrats pulling the plug on Tesla. Arizona Senator Mark Kelly announcing that he's ditching his Tesla in protest of Elon Musk.
What matters is, doing the right thing. I think it's time to get rid of it. Elon Musk kind of turned out to be and I don't want to be driving the car built and designed by
This after President Trump bought a Tesla in a show of support for Musk company amid ongoing protests. And happy Pi Day. Pi is the number with infinite decimal places, the first being 3.14, which correlates to today's date, of course, March 14th. Congress designated the day back in 2009 in an effort to boost interest in math and science. Now, fittingly, this is also Albert Einstein's birthday today, March 14th. And a short while ago, President Trump helping Elon Musk's son up the steps of Marine One en route to Mar-a-Lago. The president taking a slight misstep on his way up after lending a helping hand there. And that, Blake, is what is happening on the Hill.
I did that in my house last night, I'll admit. Happens to everyone once in a while. I was just trying to help Elon Musk's son up there. I didn't know that Congress had a Congressional Pi Day thing.
I also didn't know that that was going to be used to get people more interested in science and math.
Learn something new every day. Libby Dean, have a great weekend. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, so should public schools be allowed to teach the Bible? That question has been up for debate. Oklahoma's top educator, Ryan Walters, has been leading the charge in his state to place Bibles in the state's public classrooms. He's even issued guidelines for how to teach the Bible. But now the Oklahoma Supreme Court is pausing Walters' attempt to buy Bibles with taxpayer money and install a Bible curriculum in classrooms. The superintendent, Ryan Walters, joins me live once again back here on the Hill. Ryan, thanks for being with us. I actually want to start somewhere else. I know your normal backdrop. You're not in it because let's show the folks the wildfires that are in Oklahoma. I was just told you had to evacuate. What is the scene there, and how are the folks doing?
We're having over 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts. You've got fires around Norman, Stillwater, and it hit downtown Oklahoma City just a while ago. So we got out of the agency. There's some fires around where our agency is located. So again, keep Oklahomans in your thoughts and prayers. We're trying to make sure the kids were out of school before this really hit. But boy, I'm telling you, these wind gusts are enormous, and they've been going on now for the last few hours.
The best, obviously, to you and your family and to the folks out there. We've been keeping our eyes there. This is a live look, Oklahoma City. Ryan, back to the topic at hand here. You've got a battle there. We outlined sort of where you are and what your views are. I wonder where you take this next. Do you think this is headed to the Supreme Court?
Look, I think it is. Look, I think the Supreme Court got this wrong in the 1960s. Engel versus Vitale is wrong. You saw the 1960s Supreme Courts did not base it in historical precedent. They decided to weaponize the Supreme Court against religion, against the Bible. And so, yeah, we're happy to challenge this all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we're going to be successful there. The Bible should be back in the classroom.
The governor in your state, who's a Republican also, Kevin Stitt, didn't sound, though, like he has much support or isn't really backing you up here. He was asked about the free Bible app that was created by a pastor in your state, and he said, I'm sure most kids have the Bible app on their phone. At what point, Ryan, do you say, you know what, I believe this, I've tried this, but maybe I just don't have the political and legislative support behind me?
Well, unfortunately, our governor, in a state that went all 77 counties to Trump, has been an ever-Trumper and continues to fight anything along the lines with President Trump's agenda. So that's unfortunate. But what I'm going to tell you is I listen to parents and grandparents. They understand the Bible is a foundational document. So we're going to continue to move forward. We have multiple options here. We just launched an ability for folks to donate to get the Bible in the classroom with our friend Lee Greenwood. We appreciate his support on that. And we're going to keep working towards this because kids need to know the role that Judeo-Christian values played in American history. That's not controversial for most Americans, and it's definitely not controversial for most Oklahomans.
At what point do you potentially stop, though, Ryan? Because the Supreme Court in your state has ruled against you. And I know you tell me that you think or you hope or you want this to get to the Supreme Court, but at what point do you reevaluate?
So now, Blake, they have not ruled against us. So I just want to be clear. They've paused it till the ruling comes in. So look, I'm still very optimistic about the Supreme Court here. Look, we've got historical precedent. We can point back to the founding era. We can point back to American history until the 1960s. This was not controversial. There was a Bible in every classroom. Putting the Bible, the Declaration of Independence, and Constitution back with guidelines. And as you know, Blake, we're very clear on this. It's in its historical context. What role did it play in American history? This is solid footing. The radical left and the unions continue to attack us every which way on this. But this is solid. This is solid legally. It's solid historically. And it's just common sense.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens there legally in your state with the Supreme Court. Ryan, we're also, of course, keeping our eyes on those wildfires there. The best to the great folks there in the state of Oklahoma tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep, you got it. All right. Still to come here on The Hill. Take two or take something or another. It's been a long time for these folks up there. Anticipation building right now as SpaceX attempts a second launch to bring home 2 astronauts stuck in space. The very latest as the rocket is on the launch pad in Florida here on The Hill. Plus Law and Order. The president delivers a speech to the Department of Justice, but is the move unprecedented? I'll explain maybe why not when we talk live with the former White House Cabinet Secretary here next on The Hill. All right, so could the second time be the charm? Live look right now down there at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. SpaceX is moving forward with its plan to launch its Crew 10 mission. It is expected to launch in about 21 minutes from now. Now, they postponed launch earlier this week, so it'll be the second attempt for SpaceX to both, one, get that rocket up there with new NASA astronauts, but also two, to then at some point after that, bring home the astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams. Those two have been stuck in space for 9 months. They were initially only supposed to be there for 8 days. We keep our eyes on the skies there in Florida. Also today, President Trump making a rare move, speaking at the agency meant to independently uphold the rule of law. The president laying out his vision for the Department of Justice in a speech at DOJ headquarters.
Our predecessors turned this Department of Justice into the Department of Injustice, but I stand before you today to declare that those days are over and they are never going to come back. I will insist upon and demand full and complete accountability for the wrongs and abuses that have occurred. The American people have given us a mandate.
Now, President speaking at the DOJ, it's rare, but it's not unprecedented. The first visit came from Hoover back in 1933 when he presided over the building's dedication. 60 years later, for example, Clinton delivered an address for the Justice Department to be free of quote-unquote political abuse. George W. Bush visited following the weeks of 9/11. President Obama attended a retirement ceremony in 2015 for Eric Holder. Bush and Obama made 2 visits each, according to the New York Times. Here now with me, Bill McGinley, who played a significant role in the Trump transition on the legal side, back with us here on the Hill. Hello, sir.
Great to be back.
Great to have you back, finally. So as I outlined there, it's not unusual for presidents to go there. Bill Clinton actually gave a speech there, fairly lengthy, 3 months in his first term. Trump's doing it now 2 months into the second term. It lasted about an hour. I also heard the president talk about egg prices, interest rates, Chuck Schumer, Biden's auto pen, Russia, Ukraine, and Bobby Knight. So this was all over the place today. What did we hear, and what do you think he was actually trying to accomplish today?
I think what it was a triumphant return after he had been indicted 4 times by the prior administration, 2 times at the state level where DOJ officials had gone down and coordinated, 2 times federally. He suffered multiple lawsuits. We saw the FBI raid in Mar-a-Lago on a former president and the chief political rival. And I think what this was a triumphant return for President Trump to say, we are going to restore the rule of law. Okay. We are going to restore equal justice under law. And we're going to have a Department of Justice that's going to apply law to facts as opposed to weaponizing it to go against your chief political rival.
So the argument there's a discussion in the country of, was the DOJ weaponized, right? Mm-hmm. There's many folks like yourself who believe it was. There's others who believe it wasn't. You can have whatever view you wish. One of the things the president did when he got into office was signing executive orders that targeted law firms, specific law firms. You're a big-time attorney in this town, sir, as you know. I want to play the soundbite of what the president said today. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
We revoked the clearances of deranged Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, and the crooked law firms that aided their partisan persecutions.
You think you should have gone after those law firms as a lawyer yourself?
I think given what he's been through, shot in the ear, all the stuff we just talked about, the indictments, the prosecutions, the raid on Mar-a-Lago, I think he's looking at not only the government actors, but some of the private sector actors that he felt helped create the environment where that could happen. You know, the Democrats have a $2 billion dark money network that employs a lot of these firms.
Should he go there, though? And where do you think this ends up?
I think it ends up in the Supreme Court. I think it's one of these things where you go after the private sector organizations like a law firm. I think ultimately it's going to be decided by the United States Supreme Court, and it's going to test. I mean, he has a lot of authority over security clearances, and he has a lot of authority over the federal buildings and the granting of access. But I do think it might be a case of first impression for some of these major law firms. They obviously have allies and the wherewithal to prosecute these cases to go up the chain. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the United States Supreme Court that decides this. But for President Trump, I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to level the playing field, get rid of all of the weaponization, and try and get the department backwards, focused on what it should be, violent crime.
So that's what I was going to ask you, is what he should focus on, because the White House today posted or put out on X the picture of the last thing you see, which is going into the Oval, which is the New York Post mugshot headline. Right. You think the focus for Trump should be where going forward?
I think it's going to be on the violent crime. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be securing the border. I think it's going to be ending the fentanyl crisis. I think it's going to be making our communities safer. I think it's going to be allowing kids to have a safe community in order to grow up in, and for small businesses to thrive. Okay. Because the streets are no longer, people getting killed. I mean, you can't walk down the street in the nation's capital without running into somebody who is either the victim of violent crime or knows somebody.
Yeah, it's
and so I think they're right on. I think Ed Martin, the District of Columbia, and Kash Patel, I think both of them have decided that's where we're going to put our focus, and I think that's the right way to go.
Hang around with us, if you don't mind. Other side of the break here, and thank you. Other side of the break here on the Hill. They once trashed the president out on the campaign trail. So why are some Democrats now headed to the White House for private meetings? How one likely 2028 candidate, by the way, got some face-to-face time with the president. And it's bigger than baseball, don't you know? How about this question? If you had the winning World Series ball, would you give it away? I'm going to explain to you why Will Smith is doing just that and why he's right to do just that as well. Other side.
Donald Trump called me that woman from Michigan as an insult. Being a woman from Michigan is a badge of honor.
Donald Trump was born a New Yorker, but ended up a fraud, a philanderer, and a felon.
Well, that was then. This is now. My, oh my, how things can change in just 6 months. The New York Governor Kathy Hochul and the Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the latest Democrats to meet with President Trump at the White House. Hochul meeting with the president this morning, Whitmer yesterday. Both governors writing in a statement that the meetings were, quote, productive, as they discussed tariffs and energy policy. Now, while that might sound like a little kumbaya, the Democratic Party right now, anything but that. Many Democrats furious tonight at Chuck Schumer, who is supporting the House-led government funding bill. His counterpart in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, did not seem pleased.
Is it time for new leadership in the Senate?
Next question.
Next question. Woof. Full panel here with me now. Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor. Joe Khalil, Washington correspondent. Julia Manchester, national political reporter for The Hill. Back with me once again, Bill McGinley, former White House cabinet secretary in the first Trump administration. Hello to you all. Happy Friday. Lots to get to. The Democratic governors, they trashed him then. They're headed to the White House now. What are they trying to do here, Scott?
Politics of campaigning was your first video of trashing the president-elect, or rather the Republican nominee. Politics of governing mean you represent the people of your state. These are border states. One, tariffs is a big issue in Michigan as well as New York, as well as some electricity issues. It's good for them to sit down with them. It's good for them to get that meeting because they're no longer representing the Democratic Party. They're representing all New Yorkers and all Michiganders. Yes.
Yes, Michiganders is what it is. Joe's a Michigander. I'm kind of sort of one. I adopted a little bit. You know Trump well. When he knows what happened on the trail, and then they get into the Oval, what happens?
Yeah, I think in the age of DOJ, it's going to be, explain what infrastructure projects you need to have funded. Why do you need this money? Remember when, prior to COVID, a lot of these blue states were in financial trouble. A lot of them were going to start going down, but once the money spigot opened up, a lot of them were able to plug those holes. Now that the pandemic and all the free money is over, now they're starting to come back to the federal government because they started projects that need to be continued to be funding. But in the age of DOJ and in the age of Trump, it's going to be what's the return on investment for the taxpayers.
Interesting.
So I think it's not going to be the last Democratic governors that come to the Oval to talk about it. I think they better come prepared to make the case.
You cover these governors. What does the national political reporter for The Hill make of this?
Well, look, these aren't the first Democratic governors to visit Trump this year. We know that Gavin Newsom, probably the governor of the most bluest state in the country, has gone to Trump to beg for federal wildfire aid. For someone like Michigan, or Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, she represents, Republicans, Democrats. It's a swing state. Tariffs, obviously, as Scott said, are a huge issue. For Hochul, though, you look at New York and see it as a bluer state, but I think in many ways, this benefits him as well, because we've seen Republicans starting to make inroads in a state like New York, and we've seen some backlash to Hochul, particularly on this congestion pricing issue in Manhattan, not only from Republicans but also from Democrats. We know they
Joe, the day was not a good one for Chuck Schumer.
No,
that soundbite from Hakeem Jeffries. Are you confident in his leadership? Next question. What happens to Schumer? I'm getting, I had a Democrat text me today basically say this is it for his leadership.
I think this fight
and that sentiment isn't alone.
No, there are a lot of people who are questioning that, and they're getting senators and House members getting that question. I think this fight has been a long time coming. The Democratic brand right now, it's a big tent when you go from the Joe Manchins to the AOCs of the world.
Right.
What has united all of them over the last couple of years is honestly animus toward Trump and Trumpism. And they've been able to coalesce. This, you could argue, take Trump out of it. Maybe this sort of rift between the progressives and the, Chuck Schumer old school types would have happened earlier. But this vote in particular is exposing it because it's about how do we fight? Are we fighting? Are we not doing enough? And Schumer saying, I don't have the cards.
Where does he go from here? And where's your party go?
He needs to mend some fences for sure, because it's not so much about the fight. It's that they all agreed to fight. And when they showed up to the battle line, Schumer said, I'm not going to fight, while they were all prepared to fight. And he went to the other side, which allowed this to happen along with 9 others.
Go ahead. Go ahead. It was a full political surrender. And I think, who really won today? Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, John Thune in the White House staff. By forcing them with a clean CR.
That's why Democrats are upset.
Yeah, and I think Chuck Schumer's in a lot of trouble.
You gave it to him, and the reason he gave for doing this was his concerns about federal government employees and the government. Well, DOJ and Donald Trump are doing that right now. There's pain to go around right now.
Last 10 seconds here.
So why give in?
Congressman Jared Golden from Maine, a very swing district, the lone Democrat to vote against this, made a very good point today. He said the Democrats have no leverage, pointing to this shutdown. We haven't seen government shutdowns. I don't think I've ever seen a government shutdown benefit a political party. So you had a lot of vulnerable Democrats, not all.
But you just had the battle of the statement.
I got to leave it there. Fetterman saying today, Democrats keep showing up at every knife fight with a casserole. He voted for this. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Still to come, Elizabeth Vargas reports is minutes away. She'll be monitoring the SpaceX launch, expected to happen about 4 minutes from now. Will SpaceX bring those astronauts home? That's coming up 7 o'clock, moments away, right here on NewsNation. All right, so the weather's starting to turn a bit, including right here in D.C. And if you have kids, that means it's time to get ready for baseball. It's believed there's roughly 16 million kids who play in this country, and all of them at one point or another dream of winning the World Series, maybe even getting that last out. The Los Angeles Dodgers catcher Will Smith just lived out that dream, making the final out in this year's World Series. He held on to the historic baseball. Until now. Smith and his wife are now putting that ball up for auction, not for themselves, through their Catching Hope Foundation.